Hello, everybody. How are y'all doing? It's Katie here, the Mountain Mystic, coming to you once again from my backyard forest for what is sort of a part 2 of a video. If you haven't watched part 1, not to worry. I'll link it here so you can watch it. If you want to go watch that one first and watch this one second, that's awesome. If you just want to hang out here with me and continue this conversation on meditation and doing it in an embodied way, bringing meditation into a more holistic, again, embodied framework. In that first video, I spent a lot of time speaking directly to my story, my path as it unfolded as a meditator, right? Someone who has embraced meditation as a regular practice in my life and how that has unfolded across the years, for more than a decade now, and how that practice has transformed. I think a lot of us have this idea of what it means to meditate as this very rigid, sort of clear, concise practice. And the truth is that meditation can really be used, the word meditation can be used in many different ways, and we can use it as a practice. We can use it as a state, and we want to ask why, right? Why do we embrace the meditation path, meditation practice? Why do we want to enter into a state of meditation? And the answers in truth are plentiful, right? They're the easy ones we can reach for because we want more peace in our life, right? We want more peace in our lived experience. Maybe you're caught up in chaos and your thoughts, and you have these uncontrollable thoughts, and maybe you want that chaos to fall away so that you can sit in clarity. Maybe you want more focus in life, and these are all great things that can arise when you practice meditation. And there's so much more. And so what I want to do in this video is, continue to tell the story I was telling in part 1, but again, do it in a way that is focused on, not my past, but what is here and now. And what is here and now for me in my lived experience is this wild thing that is a 100-mile ultra marathon that is coming up in just a few days. I leave tomorrow, and then I'll start the event a couple days later. So what does ultramarathon running have to do with meditation? What does ultramarathon running have to do with any sort of spiritual path? Well, as I spoke to in part 1, and as I speak to all the time, I'm not someone who is here to tell you that you should take up ultramarathon running as part of your spiritual path. What I am here instead to do is to teach you how to walk through life, taking steps in a way that are aligned for you, in a way that bring you the healing, the light-filled transformation, the fulfillment, the joy, right? All those good things that we want. I'm here to teach you how to walk through life doing that, doing it skillfully. That's what we're doing here, right? And we call this a spiritual path. This ability to walk through life, taking steps skillfully in a way that serves you, and as we speak to here, serves the whole of planet Earth. But today for this video, I want to focus on you, and I want to focus on me, right? I want to focus on the individual, and I want to focus on, how we know that we are walking through life in alignment. In the last video, I spoke to mindfulness meditation and Vipassana meditation as this practice that I sort of started out my spiritual path, right? If we think about spirituality 101, right? Sort of the 101 practice. What you do is you sit in stillness and quiet and witness your thoughts, right? You're familiar with this practice. Chances are that you are. What I told in part one was a story of how this practice, started out as really beneficial. It was really helping me. But then because I wasn't grounded in a deeper spirituality, it actually turned into a practice that became my downfall, and it became harmful instead of helpful. And what replaced it, because no other sort of traditional spiritual practice could help me at that time, and talk about this in part one, what replaced it was trail running. And what, came through in my life was trail running inside this game, right? It's a game that is ultra running, that is signing up for these long distant races, 50K, 50 miles, 100K, 100 miles. And this sort of setting the stage, setting the container for a space that I could walk through life very literally, run the trails, move through life, move through the forest, move up mountains in a way that did truly bring me in deeper connection with self, bring me into deeper connection with my body, in connection to this earth. And again, this right here is what I teach. How can you find the practices? How can you find the spaces in life that do bring you into greater, deeper, more skillful connection with self, with the whole of who you are, in connection to earth? So I want to tell a specific story. From my meditation practice this morning, because, I am someone who teaches meditation, and with that I am someone who is engaged in regular meditation. What I'm not is someone who, goes to my meditation cushion, puts the timer on for an hour, closes my eyes, sits in stillness, and, moves to an enlightened space, right? Like, that's not what I teach, because that's not what I practice. What I practice, what I'm going to share with you today, is more of a dynamic practice. It's more of a fluid practice. It is a practice that meets me where I'm at, based off of what I need and what I want each day. So this morning, right, again, I'm packing up for what is going to be a 100-mile event that I'm going to run this Friday and Saturday. It's going to take 2 days. And I'm in a space, it's my last day here at home getting ready, and I'm in a space where I, more than anything, want low stress. I want peace, right? I want to feel good, relaxed, joyful. I have big goals for this race. I have a goal of, cutting 3 hours off my last time, and I can move into a space of that creating anxiety, or I can move into a space of calling in the light, envisioning it, feeling it. Yes, it is so possible for me to do this. And this is what I've been doing. This is what I've been doing for days. And this is a practice, that falls within our meditation space. This practice of recognizing when the anxiety arises, noticing that, and then choosing instead to call in the light, to be the light in this case, right, being that highest outcome for my race. And this is what I've been doing for days. And so this morning, I was feeling really good, and I decided to sit down in meditation to set a 20-minute timer and to go into that sort of stillness meditation space. And so I do this, I close down my eyes. I start focusing on my breath. I'm watching my thoughts. I'm witnessing the fact that I'm really caught up in my thoughts. As the meditation practice goes, with time, those thoughts start to fall away. And so what I'm setting up for is, this really beautiful, relaxing, peace-filled meditation practice. Well, then what happens? Is I start to notice that there's an energy that's sort of building up down in my body. And in particular, it's coming from my heart. And as I sort of start to bring some awareness, what I realize is that my heart is racing. And pretty soon, all that I can notice is my heart just thumping, like racing, beating in my chest. Now, as I told the story in part 1, that when I first, was meditating those first couple years, what I thought a meditation practice was coming into stillness, calling in stillness, sort of noticing the thoughts in my head, the sensations in my body, and holding tightly to wanting that peace, that stillness, as I notice everything else and then kind of push it away. That's what I thought. That's what I thought the meditation practice was. And as I told in that video, what happened is that at that time, what I was doing was actually causing harm because I wasn't listening to the cues in my body that were telling me that something was up. So this morning, right, I'm sitting in meditation and was really looking forward to some peace, calling in that light, being in that light. And I'd found a little bit of it, but now as I'm sitting there in stillness, present and centered in self, what I'm noticing is my heart just racing, which is a cue to me, like, okay, there's something here. Something's up. But I'm still holding that intention, like I'm here in a meditation space. I'm still here to be present with my thoughts and be in tune with wanting peace, right? Because that's really the goal. That's the intention for today. I have this big wild thing that I'm going to go do this weekend. It's going to be wildly stressful. But today I want peace. But now my heart is racing, right? I'm noticing that my heart is racing and it's pounding more and more. And the question is, what do I do? And what I did, as part of this meditation practice, was I brought awareness to it. I brought my consciousness to my heart. And as I brought consciousness to my heart, right, held my consciousness, my awareness in my heart space, I start to ask questions like, what's here? What's here? What rose up was, wow, even though I've been walking through life feeling really good, like, yeah, I'm going into this event. I've done this a couple times before. I can just walk into this one. I'm not feeling anxious. Well, it turns out that my body had been holding a whole bunch of anxious, intense energy. And it was now showing up with this really intense heart rate. So what I did then for the next 18 minutes of the meditation practice was sort of moved through this practice of, yes, I'm here to be in stillness, to focus, to stay centered on that space of peace. But to do it, I actually have to bring awareness to that which is here that isn't peaceful. that energy in my heart. And, because I've, learned a thing or two or a lot, on the spiritual path, I have a whole toolkit of practices to help bring direct relief. Now, one of those practices is in simply bringing awareness to it and asking questions like, what's here? Is there something, speaking to my heart, speaking to my body? Is there something that I need to know? Another tool in the toolbox is bringing in breath, bringing in some deep, slow, grounding breaths, breathing into my heart, breathing down into my belly, those deep, slow breaths down into my body. And what I found was that, nothing came in that directly, shall we say, resolved the problem. What unfolded was a whole meditation space where I sort of got to be in this dance with bringing some attention, some awareness to my heart, bringing conscious breath, intentional breath into my body to help relax, asking questions in my heart, asking questions in my body. Is there anything I can do to help relieve this? And then also sort of centering myself back in my head, bringing awareness to the thoughts that were coming up. Sort of centering myself back in what we might call a more traditional mindfulness meditation practice, centering sort of practice. And then what came up in that practice is that I needed to get outside. I needed to get outside and move my body because, as I've spoken in this video in part 1, many other places, that the practice that is always most powerful for me when working with anxiety, when working with stress, is to get outside, get my feet on the earth, move my body, breathe directly with the trees. That is the practice that is most powerful for me. I have all these breath practices. I have other sort of movement practices that you can do inside. You can do on a mat, you can do on a cushion, you can do anywhere, and they're powerful. The most powerful thing I know how to do to help work with my anxiety is to get outside, be present with the earth, move my body. So anyway, I just wanted to share. I wanted to share an example with you today directly from my life as, me over here as someone who is an extreme endurance athlete, but is also on her own spiritual path, is weaving it all together. And before we close down today, I want to really hit home on this thing I've kind of alluded to a few times, that is trail running itself being the space that taught me this. And it's trail running in conjunction. I shared that, my story was that, when a sort of traditional meditation practice was no longer serving me, and when everything in my life and in my body was just getting worse and worse, I was working desperately to find answers. I was studying yoga through multiple teachers. I'm a prolific reader, so, reading everything I could, listening to all the podcasts. I'm trying to find the sort of traditional practices that could help me. And the fact is that nothing was. Meditation, it's this sort of stillness. Meditation was completely out of the question. It was just making the fire within me so much worse. I'm a traditional yoga practice, and that kind of slowing down, bringing attention into my body, that wasn't working. What was working is because I'm an athlete and I had an ultra running event that I had to train for. And what that was doing was getting me out on the trails consistently. It's all about sort of awareness with self and our patterns, our wants, our desires, our needs. And right, know thyself, right? Know thyself as this sort of core piece of wisdom. And I knew myself. And I knew that signing up for a big event like a 100-miler would be something that would get me out on the trails, training consistently. And as I started learning, it was when I was out on the trails, moving my body, feet in connection to the earth, that all those experiences that I wanted, right? The anxiety, the chaos, the overwhelm, the fire within, those thoughts that I couldn't get to shut up. I couldn't get that to fall away in meditation. I couldn't get it to fall away on the yoga mat. But out training for a 100-miler, that's when it started to fall away. That's when I could find myself grounded. That's when I could find that peace, again, that centering within. And before we close here, I want to get super specific on, super technical on what was unfolding here. What was unfolding here as an embodiment practice. What was unfolding here is that trail running became an avenue that I could start to become present. And when I was in stillness on a meditation mat, the energy in my body was too much. It was too fiery. It was too wounded. I couldn't bring my awareness inward without making things worse. It was the same with yoga. The fire, the wounding in my body, the energy was too big. So that when I tried to do yoga on a yoga mat inside, it was too much and I could not tune inward. But when I was outside running up a mountain, there was, shall we call it a match in energy, a resonance. It was like the fire that I was creating through movement in my body could match the fire that was within me. Now there's a technical term for this that I learned in my yoga therapy training. This is called pitta balancing. I was in a pitta imbalance, pitta being fire. There was too much fire in me, and it was a wounded, dark, painful fire. So I could not work with it while sitting in stillness. I could not work with it on a yoga mat. But again, outside, running up a mountain or running along the trails through the forest, that's the space from which, again, there was that resonance. I could meet the fire that was within me and align that with the fire that I was creating through movement. And there in that state of resonance, that's when I could finally bring awareness to what was here. That's when I could finally bring awareness, right? My consciousness inward. And it's from the space, that things started to come up. That all those wounded experiences were able to come up, and I was able to deal with them in a way that was aligned for me. Again, this is not me teaching you, as someone on YouTube being like, hey, if you have these wounded problems, go run up a mountain and it'll fix it, right? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when we walk this embodiment path, when we do it skillfully, what we are holding is intention to find the spaces where we can go inward. And again, these days, because I'm so much further along the path, I can do it in many different ways. And this is, the story I shared in this video. I can now go into stillness, close down my eyes, and some days follow a more traditional Vipassana insight meditation. There are some days like today where I could kind of do that, but I also had to dance a little bit, play a little bit with the other energies in my body. There are some days where it is all too much. You're not going to find me inside. You're not going to find me in stillness. you're going to find me running. But after I run, then there will probably be an opportunity to bring it back down. This is another technique in yoga therapy. I'd call it a pitta vata balancing, where you go match the fire with your fire, right? You go do something like move vigorously. And then once you've met that fire, then you can bring it back down. Then maybe the time is appropriate to come into stillness. And so the other thing I want to say here is that this is tricky, right? This is tricky. So me as someone, just speaking on YouTube, what I'm trying to do is bring you awareness, bring awareness to the fact that, the spiritual path can be tricky. Where we're doing our inner work, when we're doing the important work in connection to the world, it can be tricky. And you can do it like I did on your own, holding that intention to keep moving forward, to find the practices that serve, to find the wisdom that serves. And you can also get help. And if you want direct guidance, support, direction from me, I do offer one-on-one services. Reach out, go to upwardslopes.com. It'll get you to where you need to go. Book a free call with me. Let's talk about what we're up against. Let's talk about what's going on within. Let's talk about what's going on in your life, the things that you want in your life, and let's get creative. And yes, let's call upon those traditional practices, those really powerful ones that have served humanity across the ages. And let's get creative and let's put you at the center of it all, because you deserve to be here living your life to the fullest, doing the things that you want to do. And I want you to be out there doing those amazing things that you're here to do, whether it's ultra running, this crazy space that I found myself in. Maybe it's rock climbing, maybe it's writing, whatever it is in life that lights you up. I want you doing those things. I want you doing it in a way that is aligned. Of course, as always, if you're here listening and you haven't yet, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, and let me know what's up for you. And with that, I'm going to walk back home. I'm going to finish getting ready to go run this ultra marathon. Yeah, by the time I post this, the race will be done. You can check in with how I did. I'm sure I will be posting about that on Instagram. You can find me, Katie the Mountain Mystic, at Instagram for that. All right, thanks for hanging out with me, and I look forward to catching you next time.